Hey guys, it is Chris Nicholas here from PetaPixel. Today's going to be a bit of a different video than normal because we owe you guys an explanation. You see, a few months ago we reviewed the Canon RF 14mm f1.4 VCM, an exciting new lens, and as always with our lens reviews, we try and endeavor to test things as completely as possible, which meant a lot of architecture, some landscape, but also some astrophotography because this is a very interesting astro lens. Unfortunately, though, we did have some issues that we noticed with corner sharpness, and as much as we endeavor to try to get everything as accurate as possible, some things do slip by us, and this is one of those cases. Now, as far as the lens testing goes, I feel like we did everything appropriately like we always did, but there were some optical issues, and we need to explain those. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to clear up this whole situation of what happened to the corners on that lens. All right, so I think we should give you guys some backstory just on how everything unfolded, and so you can see what kind of happened to lead to this situation. So the first thing I think you need to understand is that Jordan and I were both doing testing on Canon lenses on EOS R5s. Now, he has access to a separate R5 than I do, and that's going to become important later on. So Jordan in this particular review went out and did some astrophotography with the lens, and what we really noticed is that the corners had some streaking of stars in the corners, but not just streaking, also some sort of like wildly misfocused stuff, and we were really confused about why this happened, but we did some reshooting, some retesting. We were still getting this. Now, when we posted the review and pointed this out, actually we got some great comments from you guys, a lot of stuff on like, well, it might be that it was misfocused, or, you know, it could be that you guys used the wrong lens profile and all that kind of stuff, or it could just be that the lens has some miscalibration in its optical design, you know, maybe out of the factory, all this kind of stuff. And of course, Canon, they paid a lot of attention to this as well. Now, I know it's been quite a bit of a delay since getting that lens testing, but that's because we're trying to do our due diligence, and so is Canon. Actually, to Canon's credit, they were confused by the findings as well, and so they contacted us, and we had lengthy discussions, not just with our media team and our staff in America, but also the engineers in Japan. And this is really interesting because, you know, we were trying to figure out what's going on here. We explained all the things we did. We sent in raw files. They analyzed it. They honestly didn't really see anything wrong with the way that we shot the photos. And I think that's key to get across. So, you know, there's a lot of issues with maybe it was misfocused. It definitely wasn't. Maybe we used the wrong profile. Well, it turns out that wasn't the case either. And so after all that testing and back and forth, what we really then were left with was, is there an issue with the camera or the lens mechanically? And so we actually had to send that entire kit back to Japan. That's why it's just taken so long. And they did some extensive testing. And what they found out makes a lot of sense. So it turns out that Jordan's R5 has a slightly misaligned sensor. Now, in a lot of the lens testing we do, you're not really going to see it, but in this particular demanding situation, it does have an impact, and that seems to be the case. Just a slightly misaligned sensor. So suffice to say, we weren't going to use the kit that we originally tried out. So actually, Canon did test and then send us back an R5 II and another 14mm f1.4 lens that they've checked out fully and diagnostically to make sure that everything was ship shape. And we did the same testing. Jordan went out, actually got some beautiful raw files here, actually with a bit of an aurora borealis, which is awesome. Great timing. It's pretty common up here and it looks beautiful. Everything nicely focused. The centers look good, but in the corners, we are still seeing some of that streaking. And I think this is really going to come down to the lens does, especially when you shoot wide open at f1.4, inherently have some problems with field curvature and coma, and it's causing a little bit of streaking. And we saw this on the first lens as well. So I'm convinced that this is just inherent to the lens design. It's not bad. This is still very good for astrophotography, but you will see a little bit of that in the corners, and we're seeing it on all four corners here. It's definitely going to be noticeable when you zoom in, and it's pretty typical of what we see from other competitors' wide-angle lenses at 1.4 as well. And interestingly enough, Jordan did a sample here where he stopped down from f1.4 to f2, and then stopping down from f2 to f2.8. And we're not really seeing much improvement in that effect. So, I mean, you know, maybe a little bit less coma. I think the field curvature is still going to be impacting this slightly. But, you know, look, it's worlds better than what we had before, and we're not seeing the exaggeration of this effect although the effect is still there from that sensor misalignment. This is easily going to be Canon's best astrophotography lens. I mean, looking at, again, the effect is very similar to what I've seen from a lot of the other major manufacturers, ultra wide, ultra fast lenses, and I think you guys will find good utility into this. So I'm glad we were able to take a second look and get this resolved. I also want to say a big thank you to you guys for all the comments. They're very helpful on what it could have been, what it possibly might have been. So we appreciate that feedback. Big thanks also to Canon as well for really stepping in here and making sure that we could get a second shot at this and really find out what the truth is. And again, we apologize we had this problem in the first place. And of course, as always, we appreciate the feedback. So let us know what you think. And you've had a chance to see the files here in some extreme close-ups of the corner so you can see the results for yourself. And we always appreciate that discourse. We have a very vibrant community here on PetaPixel that we're very proud of. So again, thank you guys, and we'll see you soon with another episode of PetaPixel soon.